Hey everyone, I've been wanting to test out the Curse Cast on Crypt build ever since I saw it on Reddit. I've been playing with it a lot and I think I figured out how to improve it. Just making this video quickly to go through the build, what you can do to make it better, one of the best possible rings that you could get that no one is talking about, as well as how do you get jewels and how do you make the build as cheap as possible all the way up to being like worth a mirror. So first of all, how does the build work? It's actually quite simple. So really what we need is just two skills. We need cast on crit and we need a curse. And honestly, it can be any curse. I tested it with all of these curses and they all work really well. Of course, the original one is elemental weakness, but to be honest, I actually prefer temporal chains after playing around with all of the curses, and I'll talk about why. But to go over the build really quick, you need cast on crit. This is just the very standard cast on crit Comet. You have Comet, which does the majority of the damage. You also have Living Bomb, which essentially does even more damage through fire damage, and also gives you fire infusions, which allows your Comet to do even more damage when they're fire infused. The last three can be kind of up to you. Boundless energy is pretty required, I would say. Rakiata's flow makes it so elemental weakness is not necessary and temporal chains is better. If you don't have Rakiata's flow, maybe elemental weakness is better, but I feel like temporal chains is still better in that case, but we can talk about that in a sec. I just have Dallas Desire, so it gives me more reservation efficiency so I can fit it in with some other spells, such as Mysticism, but it is definitely not required. Here you can probably fit in some other stuff. Let's see, what would be some good ones? So, like for example, you can fit in Energy Retention, which would be really good as well for cast on crit. Okay. The next one is Temporal Chains. Again, this could be any of them. I tried it with all of them, but I like Temporal Chains the best. So with this build, the most important thing is this, Dordre's Undoing. Currently, if you buy this, it is extremely cheap. I think it's like worth like maybe 30 exalts or something like that. So let's take a look. Where is it? It's right here. It is exactly 30 exalts. You can even put it up for 21 exalts and you'll get one for 21 exalts. So what this does is it leaves a cursed ground. So whenever I use a temporal chain, it leaves a ground that is cursed. And when people step on the ground or when the ground is created, it deals damage. Okay, it deals chaos damage for any enemy in the area. And it deals the damage based on the level of the curse associated with it. So my temporal chain is level 35. So here it's level 34 because I don't think it takes advantage of the corruption level. But it's level 34. So it does, 1,400 to 2,700 chaos damage. Okay, so that's kind of nice. It's not really that beneficial. But what it does do is that it can also crit. So here it has a crit chance of 7%, but we are a blood mage. Our base crit chance is always 15%. So what that means is whenever you cast this curse, everything within that curse gets damaged and critted, and we have a crit chance of 96%. So if you just chain temporal chains, you will get a ton of critical hits, and the critical hits will activate the cast on crit. And the next most important thing is spell cascade. This allows you to create multiple temporal chains whenever you cast next to them. So if I cast once, it actually casts 3 of them right next to each other, right? So this is very important. You can also have magnified area, which increases the area of effect, which makes it huge, and there's 3 of them. You can have focus curse, which allows them to erupt with 50% less delay, which means they almost instantaneously cast. And then you have Ritualistic Curse, which makes them delay a little bit, but again increases their areas of effect. So again, how the chain works is you use Temporal Chain. Temporal Chain casts, it critically hits everything, and that activates your Comet, which effectively kills everything, okay? And this build is really, really good versus groups of mobs, but also against bosses. And the reason why it's so good against bosses is because energy generates more depending on the type of enemies, right? So normal enemies will generate, I think, 1 energy, and then bosses will generate like 5 energy. So you'll be constantly raining down comets with cast on crit, and then with normal enemy, they will just die to the temporal chain and maybe a few cast on crit. Okay, so that's the general build. Very simple, literally 2 buttons. I mean, it's a 1 button click. There's 2 spells, and the curse really actually doesn't matter that much. I made a little tier list. Maybe we can go through them quickly together. But overall, they're all very good. So let me open up the tier list really quick. So here's the tier list that I made. I think we can go through them together. Despair is pretty good. It allows you to deal more chaos damage, which, you know, Dowdry's Desire does chaos damage. So I will put it in A. It's not exactly the best. Enfeeble is okay, but I'll come back to it. Vulnerability is probably the worst out of everything, so I'll put it in C tier. But vulnerability actually has 1 benefit, and the benefit is this, right? If you look at the Prism of Belief for, where is it? Let's see. For Elemental Weakness, which again is the most popular right now, they're literally selling for a mirror for +3 levels. The second most popular right now is Temporal Chains, and if you look at them up, they're selling for 290 divs. Right, but if you look up for vulnerability, they are literally selling for 1 div. So if you want to maximize your area of your curse, you can do vulnerability, and it is extremely cheap to get the Prism of Belief if you want it. It is absolutely not necessary to get the Prism of Belief. I just like it because it makes bigger curse areas, and I think it's more fun. But it's not necessary at all, right? So then let's talk about Elemental Weakness. This is the one that's popularized by everyone. If you go on Reddit, I think the first one on Reddit is Elemental Weakness. But here's the thing, right? Like, Rakiata's Flow makes Elemental Weakness not necessary. And honestly, from my testing, what I've enjoyed more is actually Temporal Chains. Actually, no, I will put it here. Because Temporal Chains slows everything down. So even if you don't kill something, they will move very slowly, right? So there's a benefit to Temporal Chains in that it slows them, whereas if you have Rakiata's, Elemental Weakness is really not required. I also tested this on characters without Rakiata's Flow, and believe it or not, I actually prefer Temporal Chains even then, because honestly, the Comet kills everything. It might take a little longer if you don't have Rakiata's Flow, so what you really need is just for them to be slow. So even if you don't have Rakiatas and you run Temporal Chain, it will just like slow everything to a crawl. And if they don't die, they will move slowly. You will freeze them and you will eventually kill them. So Enfeeble, I will probably stick in the A tier again. It lowers their damage, but again, Temporal Chains is better because if they're moving like 80% slower, they're not damaging you at all. They're just trying to hit you. And by the time they move close to you, they are already dead. So again, these are kind of all the curses. You can use any of them for this build. The most expensive one right now is Elemental Weakness. If you want the Prism of Belief, I think they're up to like a mirror for +3, or I guess 2,000 divs, right? But the next cheapest thing is Temporal Chain, which is actually better, and it's only sitting at 290. And then if you want the budget version, Vulnerability is literally 1 div each. It is so cheap. So if you want to give this a try just to see if you like it, I would just go buy a vulnerability one and see if you enjoy it. Okay, so that's the kind of general overview build as well as which curse to use. Now I want to talk about some cheaper ways to get this started. Okay, so there is a ring that is extremely underrated that for some reason no one is taking a look at. So before I switch to this ring, here's the ring that I was using. Okay, I think this is probably one of the better rings for cast on crit Comet. It gives additional cold damage, maximum life, and spell damage and cast speed. In fact, if I just do a search on these three things, or these four things, this is probably 280 divs. Okay, like not even looking at the resistances, this ring apparently is 280 divs. But these rings that I got for like 10 exalts is better than this 280 div ring. Okay, because what we value in this build is curse radius, so curse area of effect, and curse activation speed. Okay, so if we look at here, this ring gives crit hit chance, which again allows us to cast on crit more. It gives crit damage, which allows us to deal more damage. The reduced presence and the reduced light radius are always there. Faster curses, 19% faster curses. So when I cast, it immediately explodes. Okay, and then finally, trigger spells deals 36% increased spell damage. This is like actually perfect for this build, and I bought this ring for 23 exalts. Similar to these, right? This one, critical hit, critical damage, area of effect of curses, and then even more area of effect for spells. Okay, this was like 10-15 exalts. Sorry, 10-15 exalts. Similar with this, maximum health, extra lightning, crit. I got this for like, I don't know, 10 exalts or something like that. If you don't believe me, here is the link for it. I did a search for all of the things that are important. So here, trigger spell, increase hit, critical hit, increase critical damage, area of effect of curses, faster activation, max life, all of the gain as extras, and then spell skills have increased area of effect. So if you do a ring with 4 of these, and I'll leave this in the comment section, this, you can find rings for 2 exalts, 1 chaos, 5 exalts. These are crazy, and these are perfect for this build. If you don't take anything else away from this video, please just get one of these rings. They are absolutely insane. Okay, and then pairing with this ring is just the Seed of Calamity ring to give you some crit chance and crit damage. It's pretty cheap. Let me see. So I think I have it somewhere. If you don't look for a perfect one, so for example here, I just look for anything that's above 90 total. This is 47% crit hit, 43% crit spell damage, and it is 50 exalts. So again, extremely budgeted. You can also put caster. Is it caster? Let me see. You can put caster modify on it. But they are kind of expensive. How much are casters going for right now? Let's see. Casters are going for 65 exalts per caster catalyst. So it's going to cost you like, I don't know, like 2 divs to get it to 20% if you want to do that. But honestly, they are 50 exalts and they are very cheap. So that's your rings. The next thing that I want to talk about is the jewels. Okay, so again, if we play this build, there's so many things that are good with this build. Obviously, all of the critical hit, critical damage, critical hit for spells, critical damage for spells, but also cold damage because you're using Comet, elemental damage because you're using Comet, spell damage because you're using Comet, max energy shield, trigger spells deals more damage. And then the next ones are related to, meta skills gain more energy, which means you're casting your Comet more. And then finally the curses. So the ones you care about are area of effect of curses and faster curse activation. So I just put all of these in here and I have a count of 4. And if you just hit on search, they are 1 exalt apiece. 1 exalt, 1 exalt, 1 exalt, 1 exalt. Absolutely insane. So you can build out your rings and your jewels for less than a div, okay? And everything else here is not really necessary, right? So I have these molded gloves They are very expensive, but that's only because they have 50% increased critical hit chance. Okay, if we do another look, let's say instead of 50, we do 46. Okay, they are now 4 divs. Okay, let's go even lower. So if we do 40, they are 1 div, right? So you can get a 2-socketed glove for 1 div. We don't even need 2 sockets, honestly. We can do 1 socket for 10 exalts. For 10 exalts, you can get these gloves. Okay. Here is this amulet. This amulet is very expensive because it has a few of the things that we care about, but you don't really need this, right? You can get just all spells. In fact, you can do less than all spells. You can just do 2 levels of spells and it's 10 exalts. Okay. And then finally, I have my staff, which again is very expensive because it has plus 6 levels to all spells, but there is a essence that gives plus 5 level to all spells, and it costs like 30 exalts. You know, so you can buy. Oh, okay, I guess they're like 70. I bought this one for 30. Oh, you can buy them for like 40, right? So you can just go on the market. Here, I'm looking for something that has like some crit hit chance, some cast speed, and maybe a few prefixes. And I'll just buy the one that has the best. Here's my toggle. I'll leave this in the comment section as well. So I'll just buy this one, right? It's like 50 exalts. 50 exalts. And I'll just slam a perfect essence of sorcery on it. Boom. Look at that. Wow. So, oops. Okay, well, it replaced the crit, but, you know, that doesn't matter that much. If you want, you can buy the omen that makes sure it's a prefix. I think they're pretty expensive, though, so it's not really necessary. They're so cheap to find the staffs that I'm talking about. You can just go in and, like, buy a few of them and just do it that way. And just essence them all and see what you get. But this is a perfectly acceptable staff for this build. Plus 5 levels, some increased cast speed. Maybe we can stick some perfect exalts on it. Okay, it got mana, which is not the best. But this is a acceptable staff to start, okay? Let's see. So we talked about the rings, and we talked about the jewels, we talked about the staff. Pretty much everything else, the helmet and the boots and the chest plate, is all just for resistances. You just want to hit as close to 75% all resistances as possible. Everything else doesn't matter. Try to get something with ES. You do not need this specific thing, right? Like, you can just buy a regular ES armor with some elemental resistances, 500 energy shield, 600 energy shield, and it is completely acceptable. Okay. I think one other question that I was getting in the comments is my secondary weapon. So I have a wand and I have a shrine scepter, and the reason for these is just the light radius. So this one gives me 15% light radius, this one gives me 30% light radius. I'm currently trying to build out my temple, so having more light radius allows me to see further and be able to find the crystal charges easier. You can also get a helmet. This helmet has 15% light radius, and also this ring has 29% light radius, and I just mirror it, and then I also wear this utility belt, which then makes these give even more light radius. And finally, you can use this solar amulet, which gives even more light radius. The main thing to consider here, though, is there actually is a maximum limit to the amount of light radius that you have. So I did not know this, and I had to test it, but for me, if I wear this setup, I have maximum light radius. Okay, and if you go to your skill tree, there's actually 2 nodes that give light radius as well. There's this node that gives 20% light radius, and there is this node that gives another 20% light radius. And from my testing, I actually noticed that I don't need one of these nodes. I have maximum light radius with the setup that I have. So what I do instead is for weapon set 2, I have 3% movement speed here, 3% movement speed here, 4% movement speed here. So my weapon set 2 is purely for tempo farming, allowing me to find the circles as quickly as I possibly can. Okay. So I think that's about it. Oh, I guess I can talk about the tree itself. I did not do that at the start. So how the tree works is that you have a very standard Blood Mage build. Okay. You have here for Blood Magic, which means everything is converted to life cost. This makes it standard Blood Mage build. Okay. Everything else is the same. You get all of the nodes that give you extra crit chance. You get the nodes that give you extra energy shield and then more crit chance. The only difference here is you want these two specific nodes. Okay, you want this node that gives you faster curse activation so that your curses pop immediately. And you want this node that gives you larger area of effect, which means you have bigger curses. Other than that, it's a very standard build. You're trying to maximize the number of jewel slots that you have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jewel slot. And yeah, it works very, very well. The one thing I do want to call out though is the fact that you can overcap your curse activation time, and it kind of bricks everything. So make sure you don't do that. So again, this ring gives me 19% faster curse activation. If I mirror it, I go past some limit. I don't really know what the limit is, but here, if I try to cast curses, they just don't cast. You know, they just disappear for some reason. So make sure that you don't go past that limit. So if I take off this ring, then they cast. So I think it goes into like negative curse activation time, and then it doesn't cast at all. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is just cost efficiency. So here is Tecrod's Gaze. It allows you to increase your life cost efficiency. This is pretty much on every Blood Mage build, and it is incredibly expensive at this moment for whatever reason. Okay, so if we go and we look at Tecrod's Gaze, it is 155 exalts, which is insane, right? But let's look at what it actually does. It gives 25% increased cost efficiency, which is good, right? But here you can buy this one, this Idol of Eashta. It gives 12% cost efficiency, increased cost efficiency. This one gives 25% increased cost efficiency. So this is half as good as Tecrod's Gaze, but if you look at it, it literally costs like 4.5 divs. So it is so much cheaper. So if you're having like life issues, I would say just go ahead and buy one of these, stick it in your helmet. I have it in my helmet as well. 12% cost efficiency. And that's pretty much the build. Thanks guys for watching. Have a good day.